Hi, it's Jeff here. I've got a really quick video for my email subscribers. I just wanted to first of all say thank you for sticking with me and for watching all the lessons so far, and to answer one of the most common questions that I've been getting, and that is about my double bass. So I want to tell you about the instrument, what it's made up of, where it's from, what the instrument is, and also answer some questions about setup and strings, because they're two of the most important things that you should be looking for in your bass. So let's get stuck into the detail and I'll let you know what equipment I'm using. Well, the bass that I use in my lessons is a composite instrument made up of a few different parts. The shell of the body is an older German bass. The front is modern, and the neck has been replaced very recently as well. Now, the one thing that I really want you to take away from today is that no matter what instrument you have, the key to success is getting it set up by a professional luthier. The guy that I use, Martin Bailey, lives 4 or 5 hours drive from where I am, but I love his work so much that I make a really big commitment of time to get the bass down there and get it set up well. And you know, I would find someone local to you who you trust, who will be able to help you set up your bass. Now, for me, the instrument that I had a few problems, and Martin did some work and he replaced the neck. He did a full neck graft on the instrument, and consequently it plays absolutely brilliantly. It's very comfortable. The things that I like about the setup are that the height by the nut, the string height by the nut, is quite low. I also like a generally low action, and that's achieved with a very well shaped fingerboard, very smooth with no bumps in it. So that's the main thing that you should be thinking about no matter what bass you have, is the setup right for you? I also find that string adjusters, and that's something that I'm string height adjusters, bridge adjusters, also really help me as well, because over the years I've been able to raise them up and down and experience the benefits of the different string heights for myself. And in my experiences with the basses that I've owned, it hasn't had a detrimental effect to the sound. Some people are a little bit funny about bridge adjusters, and I think if you have a nicely set bridge, you should just leave it. But if you're like me and you like tweaking things, then I wouldn't worry about adding them in. Okay, so we can see here that setup is really crucial. The other second most important thing before the instrument itself is the strings. Now, I use Piastro Eva Perazzi Vike gauge, the light gauge strings, and I absolutely love them. I've had them on the same set for about 2 years on my bass now, and I think I've used them for at least 4 years. I've also experimented a lot with strings in the past, and the problem with recommending strings is there are so many other factors, the main one being your double bass. And I'm a huge fan, for example, of Thomastik Spiracore Vike gauge, the light gauge. And I really love those strings. They're absolutely fantastic. Ray Brown used them, and of course, he sounded absolutely incredible. And I love them as well. And I particularly love it when I hear other people using them. But for me and my instrument, they always sound, they just don't sound quite right. So you are going to need to experiment. There isn't any kind of set rules about strings. It really varies from bass to bass. And the only way to find out what's going to work on your instrument, unfortunately, is to spend the time and the money changing strings. You can, of course, use second-hand strings, especially if you're just trying them out, or maybe a friend would lend you an old set just to see if the quality is right. Another tip would be to buy just the G and the D and see if they suit the sound of your instrument. So let me try and think about other sets of strings that I really recommend. Another set that I really like is D'Addario Helicore Hybrid Light Gauge. And Christian McBride plays these, as far as I'm aware, and they sound absolutely incredible. But of course, I don't sound anything like Christian McBride when they go on my bass, and I don't sound anything like John Patitucci when I put the Eva Perazzis on my bass. But I think it's really good to listen to these players and try and work out what you like about their tone. You know, For instance, Christian McBride has quite a bright sound to his bass. Brian Bromberg, with his he uses Thomastic Spiracore Vikes, and he has quite a bright sound to the bass. It really, with a lot of buzz and growl, and it sounds fantastic. But it's a very different sound to, say, somebody like Barry Bales, who uses gut strings. Quickly, while we're doing strings, on gut strings, I think they sound like a great idea, but I just can't be bothered with the concerns about intonation. So, you know, maybe I'm just being a bit lazy and they would be worth the investment. And I know there are a lot of bass players out there who sound fantastic with gut strings. But for me, I just feel that I'm happy with the Eva Perazzi, and they give a kind of gut-like sound. Now, myself, I play mostly jazz music and show music, and I'm often playing amplified, and that's another consideration with strings. You can get some really good classical strings that sound amazing under the bow. My favourite being Thomastic Bel Canto. I find them really comfortable on the left hand. They sound absolutely great under the bow, and I use them for my classical recital when I was studying classical music. However, and the pits sounds fantastic, but when I put them on a bass and got out doing my big band gigs and my show gigs, I found the pit sound just got completely lost. So bear in mind that classical strings do work well on some basses for pits, but there are less basses amongst those that it would work well amplified. And I do think that there's a lot to be said for either finding the hybrid string that you like and sticking with it. So for me, I just use the Eva Perazzi Vike and maybe the Diodario Hybrid Lights. They work really well. Or if you're lucky enough having two basses, and I do know people that have a bass setup for classical music, and it's also nice to have the action a little bit higher to get a bit of a bigger sound, maybe a larger instrument. And then a kind of slightly smaller jazz bass would suit me very well, and maybe with the Thomastics on, the Spiracores. With the Spiracores, one last little thing is that they do sound very bright out of the packet. So if you've just bought them, give them a few weeks to settle down and they change enormously. The other strings like the Eva Perazzi and the Diodario Helicore range sound pretty much the same when you start, and then they just get duller. With a Thomastic Spiracore, they're very bright and they don't sound great out of the pack, but they sound fantastic the longer you play them. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video on strings and setup and on the double bass. But before I go, I'd love to hear from you about what instrument you're using, what works for you, what strings you're using, and what you think about setup. So if you could let me know by leaving a comment underneath the video, that would be fantastic. I'm also asked a lot about amplification, pickups, etc., microphones, what I use to record the video lessons. So I'll be filming another lesson covering that topic, and that'll be out soon. So keep an eye out for that. Keep practicing. I'll see you in the next Discover Double Bass video lesson.